Hello and welcome to another Meeples and Miniatures miniature review show with me, Neil Shook. This time round we're looking at a recent release from Warlord Games. This is to complement their release of their Hail Caesar Ancient Rules earlier in the year. Now the Plastic Legionary box set has been out for a while, and originally it contained 30 Roman Legionaries. What they've now done with the box set is they've amended it and reissued it. So now it still contains 3 sprues, but rather than having 3 sprues of Legionaries, it now has 2 sprues of Legionaries and also a Scorpion catapult, which is giving Roman generals that option of providing much needed fire support for their troops. Now here we've seen the box art. Obviously, as you can see, they've taken the box art from the original Roman Legionary set, but they've put the new Hail Caesar imagery around it. And the back of the box gives you an example of how you can set up your troops. So what do you get? Well, first off, you get a sheet of water slide transfers. Now, obviously note there are now 20 miniatures in the box, but you're getting a total of 42 transfers, 39 for square shields, 3 for round shields. So a good selection of water slide transfers to begin with. Then you get 2 different sprues. You get these 2 sprues, which are the Legionary sprues. You get a standard sprue, which is the one on the right, and on the left is a command sprue. And then your third sprue consists of this particular one, which is the sprue that contains the Scorpion. Okay, so let's go back and look a little bit more at the Legionnaire sprue. Obviously this is something that a lot of people have seen before. Okay, here you got the standard Legionnaire sprue, 10 troops, 5 different poses, choice of different heads, and also a choice of whether to be armed with swords or pilums. As you can also see, although there are 10 troops, there are only a maximum of 8 pilums in the hand and 4 swords. So with the options available, it isn't possible to build a unit that is either all pilum armed or all sword armed. So your options are actually a little bit more limited than what it first appears. If we take a closer look at the Legion sprue, I mean, the one thing to notice in all this is that, well, especially if you haven't seen them before, separate heads, several with different expressions. The actual detailing on the miniatures themselves are pretty good, and you can see that actually, although there's a fairly pronounced mould line in places across the middle of the sprue, on the whole, it doesn't look too arduous. There's little bits of flash floating around, nothing too major, so it should be pretty easy to clean up. Again, this from the other angle, as I say, you can see a few bits of flash and mould lines around, but generally very good detail. Very nice set of figures this. Moving on to the command sprue, here we see a close-up of the command side of the command sprue. If you get my point, these are all the command figures. As you see at the top, you've got a couple of guys. Well, this is the top view of their headdresses. So they're wearing wolf pelts. So as you can see, instead of all multi-pose legionnaires, you've got a standard bearer, a musician. You've also got a centurion's helmet, a couple of other different options. It's a close-up of the back. Here you can see the wolf pelt heads in more detail. Also some more details of the back of the armour. Again, central mould line in some evidence, but as you've seen before, that's potentially quite typical with a lot of injection moulded stuff, and isn't too badly pronounced and should be quite easy to clear up. So here's just the entire sprue. As you can see, the other side is the standard Legionary sprue. So even coupled with the other sprue, there's not enough weapon options on these 2 sprues between them to give you a unit that is entirely sword armed. So you're going to have a mix of swords and pilums, which is potentially a bit of a shame. Now, just before we move on, it has been noted, I must admit, I didn't assemble these guys and have a go at ranking them. It has to be said in the past that there are some issues surrounding the ranking of these models, especially if they're posed in an aggressive way. So it may mean a little bit of playing around when you put your models together with how the shields go, how you pose the arms of the P-looms, etc., so these models rank up. May actually be one reason why, if you go back to the box, on the box art you see that the figures on the box art, although they're ranked, there is a fair amount of space between the ranks, and it looks like you've got, rather than the figures being, well, you've got some examples of figures being based individually, but they look like fairly big bases, potentially 30mm bases, just gives you a bit more room, I think. Okay, so back to the new addition to this box set, and that is the Scorpion. A single sprue of this, a choice of 2 bodies, 4 heads. Each body has a choice of 2 different sets of arms. You can say there you've got one guy without a helmet, and you've got a choice of an arm actually physically carrying a helmet, so obviously they can be paired together. Several of the arms are holding bolts, so it's perfectly possible to put together almost like a vignette, if you like, with the crew loading the weapon. As you can see from this sprue, the Scorpion itself comes in a total of 4 parts. You've got the 2 parts that make up the main body. You've got one part for the mantle at the front. You've got another part for some more legs. Then you've got 3 sets of stuff, which it's probably the least convincing part of the model for me. I really don't know how accurate it is that whether these things actually were around or not. It kind of looks a bit like an ancient version of a tank trap, like an anti-personnel sort of thing made out of wood. Whilst I don't know for certain whether this was actually ever used. To me, it looks somewhat unconvincing. Jury's out for me on that. I remain to be convinced, but it's there. It's potentially, in the kit to use. Let's take another shot at this sprue. You can see this one's actually affected quite badly by mould lines. They're actually quite pronounced on a couple of the figures, so potentially a fair amount of cleaning up required here. But a nice range of multi-poses. As you say, we've got a choice of 2 different heads for each model, several different arms. So, it should be really easy to put several of these together, and each one look slightly different as far as the crew's concerned. Another close-up shot, just giving some more detail. Again, well put together, well cast, nice looking model. This particular set, complete with one Scorpion, weighs in at £20. Now, the older box set is still available. So you've got the original Legionary box set, which is 13 Legionaries, and that's £17. You've got this set, which is 20 Legionaries plus a Scorpion, that's £20. Or you've also got an alternative of a battery of 3 Scorpions, which is £20. Alternatively, you can also buy sprues individually. So you've got the command sprue and the Legionary sprue. They're available separately now for £7 each. So quite a choice in how you wish to buy your troops. Obviously, if you started out when Warlord games first started and bought the Legionary packs, then really, if you wanted to add Scorpions to it, you'd really be looking to buy the Scorpion box set. But if you're just starting out, I think this thing of a unit plus a Scorpion is just a nice way of building your units, and actually gives the opportunity for you to add a Scorpion into an existing Roman Legion without having to buy 3. You may not want a box of 3 Scorpions, but another 20 Legionaries are always going to be useful, and if they happen to have a Scorpion as well, so much the better. So a decent set of figures, well produced, is what you come to expect from Warlord running. Nice hard plastic, nicely produced box set, up to the existing standard of Warlord plastic figures. Really good. So if you're getting into Hail Caesar for the first time, and you want to look at building a unit and want some support as well, then very handy box set to have available. And whilst we're on the subject of Romans, A pack that was released around about the same time, something that was requested, almost enough said really. These were Roman slave girls, something that has proved fairly popular, from all intents and purposes, for scantily clad, or relatively scantily clad, Roman slave girls in togas, doing various bits and pieces. Quite how they fit in with some of your wargaming requirements, I'm not quite so sure. Maybe a vignette around a Roman commander, probably more to the point, they probably fit into a vignette around a gladiator game or chariot racing or something like that. They kind of fit in the crowd. For want of a better phrase, workman-like sculpts. Certainly not the best females I've seen, but in any way, shape or form. Some of the faces seem a little flat. In this particular picture, the face of the lass on the right, not convinced. So apparently a set that certain people have been clamouring for, but no, I'm not overly impressed. Some of the sculpting on the legs looks not brilliant. Maybe it's just the moulding. I don't know. It's they're not as crisp and as well cast as some, especially the female miniatures you'll come across. You look at compare these to some of the stuff that people like Hasselfree produce, for example, and they are far superior. So it has to be said, these are a little bit disappointing. They're okay, but need a bit of cleaning up. Once they're painted, then they'll probably look okay, but they're not overly impressive in the bare metal. So, not a pack I would particularly go for myself.